When I touched the doorknob, I thought the war was over. The house still smelled of bread and firewood, but something was different. Anna trembled when she saw me, as if I were a ghost. Then the boy came running, laughing, calling out to her. And in that innocent smile I saw the face of a German soldier, the one who let me live when he had the chance to kill me. Now his son was calling my wife, Mother. If you had fought for everything and lost like that, what would you do? Stay with me. This story isn't about war. It's about what's left after it. The train rocked as if the whole world were shaking. I stared out the window. Burned fields, empty villages, wreckage scattered like nameless gravestones. The war was over. Everyone said so. But something inside me was still bleeding. There were other soldiers in the car. No one spoke. Each carried his own weight. I kept my hand in my pocket, gripping the medal pinned there, a cold, shiny thing they gave me for bravery. Bravery. The word sounded like a joke. I wasn't brave. I just survived. And even then, I'm not sure I had a choice. The train crawled forward, as if afraid to arrive. I understood. I was afraid too. Afraid to see my mother. Afraid to see my sister grown up. Afraid to realize that the house still stood. But the man who once lived there had died 3 years ago on some battlefield, whose name I still can't pronounce. With every jolt, another memory came back. Johan's face. My best friend since I was 10. He died beside me, holding my hand, begging for water. I didn't have any, only blood on my hands. The smell of gunpowder mixed with wet earth. That smell got into your lungs and stayed there. Even now when it rains, I smell it again. The sound of gunfire, not the loud shots, but the low ones. The ones that make the silence afterward feel heavier, as if the world itself stopped breathing. I closed my eyes, but it didn't help. The war was carved inside me. An old man sat across from me, staring. His eyes were sunken, empty. Maybe he was the father of someone who never came back. Or maybe, like me, he had come back but left pieces of himself along the way. He didn't say anything, just nodded, as if he understood. I wanted to believe I'd done the right thing, that fighting was necessary, that defending my country had been worth it. But the truth is, I don't know what's right anymore. I only know that I killed, that I saw men die. Some of them had faces as young as mine. And in the end, no one won. We all just lost too much. Outside the sun was setting. I should have felt relief, joy. But all I felt was an emptiness, the size of all the men left behind. Then I recognized something through the window. A church. The tower was still standing. I knew that church. It was 2 hours from my hometown. That meant I was close. Very close. My heart started racing. Not from happiness, panic. I didn't know how to look my mother in the eye. Didn't know how to tell her I'd come back. But her son had died a long time ago. The medal weighed heavy in my pocket. I thought about throwing it away. But I couldn't. Maybe because, deep down, I still wanted to believe it meant something. That all that pain had a purpose. The train whistled. We were arriving. I took a deep breath, but the air wouldn't come in right. It felt like my lungs were still full of smoke. I thought I was leaving the war behind, but it was waiting for me at home. The platform was empty when I stepped off. I was expecting someone. I don't know who. Maybe my mother. Maybe my sister. But there was no one. Only the wind pushing dry leaves across the stone floor. I walked slowly down the main street. I recognized every corner, every door, every window. But everything seemed different. Smaller. As if the war had shrunk the world, or made the weight inside me bigger. The houses had been rebuilt, new bricks, clean roofs, uncracked windows. It was like the town had decided to forget, to erase the marks, to move on. I didn't know whether to envy or despise that ability. I saw Mr. Weber, the baker. He stopped in the doorway, looked at me for a long second, then lowered his eyes and went back inside. I understood. He'd lost both sons in the war. Seeing soldiers return must have been like seeing ghosts of the ones who didn't. I kept walking. A woman crossed the street when she saw me. Another whispered something to her daughter and pulled her close. I was still wearing my uniform. Maybe that was why. Or maybe it was the way I walked, as if I carried all the dead on my back. The market was open. I heard laughter inside, children playing, life happening. And there I was, standing outside, like a visitor from another world. Because that's what I was. I didn't belong there anymore. I'd seen too much, done too much. I stopped in front of the church. The same one I'd seen from the train. The doors were open. I went in. The silence inside was different, more respectful. I sat on the last bench, like I used to as a child. I looked at the crucifix. And for the first time in years, I tried to pray. But the words didn't come. Only images. Johann asking for water. The enemy soldier I killed hand to hand, looking at me in disbelief, as if he couldn't believe he was dying like that. The mother of that boy, somewhere in Germany, waiting for a son who would never come home. I closed my eyes. I felt the tears come, but I held them back. Not there. Not yet. When I left the church, I saw a group of men across the square. Former soldiers too, I could tell by the eyes. That look only those who've been there have. Empty and full at the same time. One of them nodded at me. I thought about going over, but I didn't. Because even among them I'd still be alone. Everyone carries his own war. My family's house was 3 blocks away. I could see the red roof from where I stood. My heart sped up again. I thought about going back to the station, catching another train, leaving for anywhere. But my feet kept moving. I needed to see my mother, to know if she still recognized me. If there was still a place for me in a world that had moved on while I stayed trapped in the past. But there was someone else I needed to see too. Someone who was waiting for me. Or I wanted to believe she was. I stopped in front of the door. My hand was trembling. 3 years. 3 years since the last time I touched that wood. I took a deep breath and knocked. 2 light knocks, the way I always used to. Footsteps came from inside, slow, cautious. Then the door opened. Anna. She stood there, in the doorway, apron dusted with flour, hair tied up carelessly. Her eyes met mine, and for a second, just 1 second, I saw everything I'd left behind. Love. Promise. The life that was supposed to be ours. But then something changed in her face. A shadow. Fear. You came back, she said. Her voice weak, almost a whisper. I did, I replied, and I didn't know what else to say. She stepped forward and hugged me. I felt her body tremble against mine. Or was it me trembling? I don't know. I closed my eyes and tried to remember what it felt like to be home, to be safe, to be truly alive. But the hug felt strange, hesitant, like she was embracing a ghost. Come in, she said, slowly letting go. The house was exactly as I remembered. The wooden table where we used to eat, the armchair where my father read, the curtains my mother sewed, everything in place. Everything the same, except me. I smelled bread baking in the oven, the same bread Anna made on Sundays. That smell should have brought me peace, but it only brought a strange ache to my chest, because I didn't deserve it. I didn't deserve to come back to a place like this, not after what I'd done. Your mother's doing well, Anna said, pouring coffee into a cup. She'll be so happy to see you. I just nodded. I couldn't speak. Every word felt like a lie. I wasn't the man she was waiting for. I was something else, something broken. Anna sat across from me. She held my hand, but her touch was different now. There was something between us, something that hadn't been there before. You've changed, she said, eyes fixed on mine. War changes people. I know. She looked down. I've changed too. We fell silent. A heavy silence, full of things unsaid. I wanted to ask if she still loved me, if she still wanted to be my wife, if she still had hope for us. But I was afraid of the answer. Then I heard it, a child's laughter, coming from the back room. My heart stopped. I looked at Anna. She turned away too quickly. Anna. My voice cracked. Who's there? She didn't answer. She just squeezed my hand tighter. And in that silence, I understood everything. I had come home, but it wasn't my home anymore. And then, between us, I heard that laughter again. A laughter that shouldn't exist. The bedroom door opened, and there he was. A boy. Small, maybe 4 years old. Blonde hair, almost white, and those eyes, blue as ice, too clear to be real. My blood froze. I knew those eyes. The boy looked at me with curiosity. Not fear, just curiosity, as if I were some stranger passing by. He held a little wooden soldier in his hand, a soldier painted green. Who are you? He asked, his voice thin and innocent. I couldn't answer, because I was seeing another face, another man, another place, a battlefield, mud up to our knees. The sound of gunfire in the distance, and him, the German soldier, looking at me with those same blue eyes. I was wounded, bleeding, unarmed. He had the gun pointed at me. He could have shot, should have shot, but he didn't. He lowered his weapon, gave me water, helped me up, and when our eyes met, I saw something I never thought I'd see in an enemy. Humanity. Days later, I saw him die, in another battle, lying on the ground, chest open, eyes still open, still blue, still human. And now those eyes were here, in my house, on a boy who shouldn't exist. Anna. My voice broke. What is this? She stood slowly, took the boy's hand and led him back into the room, closed the door. When she came back, tears were streaming down her face. I didn't want you to find out like this. Find out what? My voice rose, though I tried to hold it back. Who is that boy? She took a deep breath, wiped her tears with the back of her hand. Then she said, his name was Klaus. He was a prisoner of war, worked on the farm nearby. I took care of the wounded. He was sick, fever, almost died. I closed my eyes, tried not to picture it, but the images came anyway. You fell in love with him, I said. It wasn't a question. No, she shouted, then softer. It wasn't like that. I was alone. You were gone. There was no news. I thought you were dead. Everyone did. And so you slept with the enemy. The words came out like poison. I saw the pain on her face. But I couldn't stop. He wasn't an enemy, she whispered. He was just a man. Scared. Far from home. Like you. I wanted to scream. To break something. To run from that house and never come back. But my feet were rooted to the floor. And the boy? He's his son, she said, crying harder now. He died before he knew. They said it was during an escape attempt, but I never believed it. My chest tightened, because I knew the truth. I'd seen Klaus die. I was there. And he hadn't been escaping. He'd been fighting on the other side. I looked at the door. The boy was behind it, probably listening. An innocent child, born of a war that destroyed everything, even love. At that moment, I realized the war had come back, and now it lived under my roof. I spent the night sitting in the armchair. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Klaus lying on the ground. And then I saw the boy, the same eyes, maybe the same soul. In the morning, I heard small footsteps in the hallway. The boy was up. He ran through the house, dragging the little wooden soldier, making battle sounds with his mouth. Sounds I knew far too well. I clenched my fists. Anna came into the room with a tray, bread, coffee, as if nothing had changed, as if the world hadn't collapsed last night. You need to eat, she said, without looking me in the eye. I didn't answer. The boy appeared in the doorway. He looked at me with that innocent curiosity. He smiled. A smile without malice, without guilt, just a boy being a boy. But I didn't see a boy. I saw Klaus. I saw the German uniform. I saw the enemy. Will you play with me? He asked, holding up the little soldier. My throat tightened. I wanted to say yes. I wanted to be able to look at that child and see only a child, but all I saw was war, betrayal, loss. "No," I said, my voice dry. His smile vanished. He lowered his head and ran back to his room. Anna looked at me with glassy eyes. "He isn't to blame. I know." And it was true, I knew. But knowing didn't make anything easier. The days went on like that. I stayed in the living room. He stayed in his room, Anna between us, trying to keep the peace. But there was no peace. Only silence. And silence, I learned in the war, is just another kind of violence. At night, I heard the boy cry. A low, muffled crying. As if he knew he shouldn't make noise. As if he knew his very existence was a bother. And it broke me. Because I had become what I hated most. A man full of anger. A man unable to see beyond his own hatred. One night I couldn't stand it anymore. I got up and went to his room. The door was ajar. He was sleeping, clutching the wooden soldier. An innocent face, defenseless. I knelt by the bed, looked at that little face, and for the first time I tried to see the boy. Not Klaus, not the enemy. Just the boy. He shifted in his sleep, muttered something. A word I didn't understand. Maybe mama, maybe papa. Something broke inside me. Because that boy would never know his father. Just like so many other children, German, American, Russian, French, all orphaned by the same war, all paying for mistakes they didn't make. He didn't choose to be born, didn't choose to be Klaus's son, didn't choose any of this, just as I didn't choose to go to war, didn't choose to kill, didn't choose to come back empty. I touched his hair lightly, blonde, fine, so fragile. Then I stood and left the room, because I still wasn't ready. I still couldn't forgive. Not him. Not Anna. Not Klaus. Not myself. I needed to understand who that man was, the enemy who had spared my life and destroyed my family. It was in November. The cold cut through your skin. The mud came up to your knees. And the sound, that constant sound of bombs exploding in the distance, never stopped. Never. I was alone, separated from my platoon, wounded. The bullet had gone through my leg. I was bleeding. Every step was agony. I knew I wouldn't make it back. I knew I would die there. That's when I heard him. Footsteps, coming toward me. Slow, cautious. I reached for my rifle, or tried to. But it had fallen far away, out of reach. I was defenseless. He appeared through the fog, gray uniform, steel helmet, ice blue eyes, a German soldier, my enemy. He stopped, looked at me. His weapon was raised, aimed at me. I closed my eyes, waited for the shot, thought of Anna, thought of my mother, thought of everything I would never live to see. But the shot didn't come. I opened my eyes. He had lowered his gun. He was looking at me with an expression I didn't expect. It wasn't hatred. It wasn't anger. It was exhaustion, sadness, humanity. He said something in German. I didn't understand, but his tone was gentle. Then he came closer, pulled a canteen from his coat and offered me water. I hesitated. I thought it was a trick, but thirst was stronger than fear. I drank. The water was warm, tasted like rust, but it was water. He looked at my leg, tore a strip of cloth from his uniform and tied it around the wound. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough to stop the bleeding. Warum? I asked. Why? The only word in German I knew. He looked me in the eye and said, in broken English, "Wir sind gleich. We are the same." Then he helped me up, carried me to a safer place, a small clearing between the trenches. No man's land. He left me there, gave me one last look, a nod, and vanished into the fog. I never learned his name, never knew where he was from, never knew if someone was waiting for him somewhere. I only found out weeks later that he had died. In a fight a few kilometers away. I saw the body from afar. I recognized the eyes, those blue eyes, still open, still human. And now, years later, those eyes had returned, in the shape of a little boy, a boy who shouldn't exist, a boy who was living proof that life goes on, even when everything seems lost, but also proof that war never ends. Not really. It just changes shape, changes faces, but it stays. Inside us, in our choices, in our pain. He spared me, gave me a chance to come home, to hold Anna, to have a life. And what did he get? Death, and a son he never met. A son who now lived under my roof, with the woman I loved, in the house that should have been mine. He spared me, and maybe that's why now I was being punished. She was sitting at the table. Her hands trembled. Her eyes were red from so much crying. I knew she was going to speak, that she couldn't hold it in anymore, and I didn't know if I wanted to hear. "I need you to understand," she began, her voice weak. I didn't answer. I just looked out the window. The trees swayed in the wind. Everything outside went on, indifferent, as if our suffering didn't matter. "When you left," she went on, "I thought I could handle it. I thought I'd be strong. But the months went by, and there was no news. Nothing. No letters. No telegrams. Just silence." She paused, took a deep breath. The town was destroyed. No food, no work. People looked at me with pity or with anger, as if I were to blame for your leaving, for your not coming back. I still didn't look at her, because if I did, maybe I wouldn't be able to keep listening. Then the prisoners came. Germans. They put them to work on the farms, rebuilding what they'd destroyed. Klaus was one of them. His name came out like a whisper, as if she were afraid to say it. He was sick. No one cared. The other soldiers just wanted him to work until he died. But I couldn't watch someone suffer like that. So I treated him, gave him food, water, medicine I got on the black market. She wiped the tears with the back of her hand. And then he got better, and we started to talk. At first it was hard. He barely spoke our language. But little by little, we began to understand each other. I closed my eyes, tried not to imagine, but the images came anyway. He showed me photos of his family, a mother, a sister. He had left someone behind too. He was alone too. He was scared too. She stood up, came to me, touched my shoulder. I didn't move. "I didn't plan to fall in love," she said, her voice breaking. "But I was so lonely, so tired of waiting, and he was there, alive, real, and he made me feel less lost." I turned to her, looked her in the eye, and I saw the truth. She had loved Klaus, not as a stand-in, but as a man, as someone who was there when I wasn't. "You forgot me," I said. It wasn't an accusation, just a fact. "No," she shook her head. "I never forgot you. But I had to survive. And surviving sometimes means moving on, even when it hurts." We fell silent, a heavy silence, full of everything we couldn't say. "And when he died?" I asked. "When he died, I wished I had died too, because I lost you, and I lost him, and all I had left was the boy, the son of an enemy, in a world that didn't want him." She cried harder now, and I didn't know what to do. Didn't know how to comfort her, because I was broken too. I could hate her, blame her for everything, shout, leave, never come back. But hating would be too easy. And war had already taught me that nothing, absolutely nothing in this life is easy. It was in the garden that everything began to change. I was pulling weeds, trying to keep my hands busy, my mind elsewhere. Then I heard small footsteps behind me. "Can I help?" I turned. The boy was there, holding a toy trowel. The blue eyes looked at me with hope. Not fear, not anger, just hope. "You don't need to," I replied, going back to work. But he didn't leave. He stayed there, standing, watching me. Then, without asking permission, he knelt beside me and started digging the soil with the little trowel. I was going to tell him to stop, but something held me back. Maybe the determination on his face. Maybe the way he bit his lower lip, focused. Maybe just the tiredness of fighting everything. We worked in silence for a while, only the sound of turned earth, birds singing, wind in the leaves. "Did you fight in the war?" he asked suddenly. I stopped, looked at him. He looked back with genuine curiosity, no judgment. "Yes." "Was it really bad?" I took a deep breath. How do you explain war to a child? How do you describe the indescribable? "It was really bad." He nodded, as if he understood, then went back to digging. "My mom says my dad fought too," he said, his voice lower now. "She says he was brave." My chest tightened. Klaus. He was talking about Klaus. And yes, he had been brave. Braver than I wanted to admit. "He was," I said. And it was true. The boy smiled. A small smile, but sincere. "You're brave too." My mom said so. I didn't know what to say, because I didn't feel brave. I felt only tired, broken, lost. But in his eyes, maybe I was something else. Maybe I was just a man trying to fix the garden. And that was enough. In the days that followed, he kept coming. Always with the little trowel. Always with questions. Always with that smile that melted the anger bit by bit. Why do flowers die? Because everything dies one day. But do they come back after? I looked at him, at those eyes that had haunted me so much. Yes, they come back after. And he smiled again, as if that were the most beautiful thing in the world. One afternoon, while we were watering the plants, he slipped in the mud, fell on his back. I panicked, thinking he'd gotten hurt. But then he started laughing, a loud, free laugh, without weight. And for the first time in years, I smiled too. It wasn't a big smile. It wasn't perfect. But it was real. He stood up, still laughing, covered in mud. And he looked at me as if I were the most important person in the world. "You're nice, Uncle," he said. Uncle. The word hit me like a shot, but it didn't hurt. At least, not the way I expected. Because at that moment, looking at that mud-covered boy laughing at his own fall, I realized something. He wasn't the enemy. He never was. He was just a child who needed someone, a father, a family, and maybe, just maybe, I needed him too. In his laughter, I heard something I hadn't heard since the war. Peace. Anna brought me an old box, worn wood, rusted clasps. She set it on the table between us, but didn't open it. She just looked at me, her eyes asking permission. "They're his things," she said. "Klaus's." My heart raced. Part of me wanted to refuse, push the box away, but another part, the part that was tired of running, needed to see. I opened it slowly. Inside there wasn't much. A faded photo of an elderly woman, probably his mother, a wooden rosary, a small book in German, and a letter, folded, yellowed with time, Anna's name written on the front. "Did you read it?" I asked. She shook her head. I never had the courage. I picked up the letter. The paper was thin, fragile, as if it might fall apart in my hands. I unfolded it carefully. The handwriting was uneven, some words in German, others in English. He had tried to write in her language, so she'd understand, so his words would reach her heart. I began to read aloud, slowly, stumbling over the words he stumbled over too. "Anna, if you are reading this, it means I didn't come back. It means the war took me, as it took so many others. But before I go, there are some things you need to know." I paused, took a deep breath. I didn't want to fall in love with you. When I arrived here, I only wanted to survive, to go home, to see my mother again. But you were kind to me when no one else was. You saw me as human, not as an enemy. And that changed everything. Anna was crying now, quietly, tears running down her face. "I know you still love your husband. I know you wait for him. And I hope, with all my heart, that he returns. Because you deserve to be happy. You deserve the life the war stole from us." My voice faltered. I had to stop for a moment. "If he comes back, tell him I'm sorry. Not for loving you. I will never regret that. but for taking a place that was always his. Tell him I hope he makes you happy, that he loves you the way you deserve to be loved. I looked at Anna. She had her face in her hands. And if we have a child, if God gives us that blessing, take good care of him. Teach him that war doesn't define who we are, that hatred doesn't have to be inherited, that love, even born in dark times, is still love. The letter ended there. No signature. Just the words of a man who knew he was going to die. I folded the paper again, put it back in the box, closed the lid. We stayed in silence for a long time, the kind of silence that doesn't need to be filled, because there was nothing left to say. No more accusations, no more anger. Only the bare truth. 3 people destroyed by war, trying to find peace in the wreckage. Klaus wasn't a villain, Anna wasn't a traitor, and I wasn't a hero. We were just survivors, each carrying scars that would never fully heal. That night I sat down to write my own letter. Not to Anna, not to him, but to myself. It's been more than 50 years. My hair is white now. My hands shake when I hold the pen, but I still see it all as if it were yesterday. The train, the silent town, the boy's blue eyes, the folded letter. I spent my whole life trying to understand what it means to come home. I thought it meant returning to the same place, the same house, the same life. But I was wrong. Coming home isn't about an address. It's about finding peace where there used to be only war. After I read Klaus's letter, something changed in me. It wasn't instant. It wasn't magic. But it was real. I decided to stay, not because I had to, but because I chose to. I chose to look at that boy and see him for what he really was, an innocent child who hadn't asked to be born into so much pain. The first months were hard. There were still nights when I woke up sweating, hearing bombs that weren't there anymore. There were still moments when I looked at Anna and felt the sting of betrayal. But slowly I learned something the war never taught me. Forgiving isn't forgetting. Forgiving is choosing not to let the past control the present. The boy grew up. He called me father. At first the word hurt, but in time I began to accept it. And then I began to like it. And finally, I began to feel proud. He never knew the whole truth. I never told him about Klaus, about the trench, about the man who saved me and later became his father. Maybe one day I'll tell him. Or maybe I'll take that secret with me. Anna and I rebuilt what the war had broken. It wasn't perfect. It never would be. But it was honest. And in the end, honesty is worth more than perfection. One afternoon, many years later, I was in the garden. The same garden where everything began to change. I planted a tree, a cherry tree. Because Klaus had told me, in that trench, that his mother had one in her yard, that he used to climb it as a child. As I turned the soil, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. It wasn't happiness. It wasn't joy. It was something quieter, deeper. It was peace. I looked back and saw the boy, now a young man, playing with his own son, my grandson. And I realized that life goes on, despite war, despite pain, despite everything. The wounds never closed completely. I still feel the ache on rainy days. I still see the faces of men who died. I still hear sounds that aren't there anymore. But I learned to live with it. I learned that carrying scars doesn't mean you're broken. It means you survived. This isn't a story I read somewhere. This happened to me. And I kept it to myself for so many years because I didn't know how to tell it. I didn't know if anyone would understand. But now, at the end of my life, I need to say, the war ended a long time ago. But inside me, it only ended when I chose to stop fighting. They say time heals everything. But sometimes, what heals is choosing not to hate anymore. And you, could you make that choice?